Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host Calvin Timms. You can find me over here on Twitter at TDC_Calvin or the Dynasty After Dark YouTube channel. And I'm excited to talk to you guys today about DeAndre Swift. I told you this video would be coming here sometime these next couple of days, and what better time to squeeze it in than right now. And DeAndre Swift, very, very good player. Got traded during the draft after the Lions traded back from 6 to 12 to take Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. Everyone says, well, how is this going to impact this whole running game and this whole offense? And we had our answer. DeAndre Swift got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the trade was pretty crazy. They traded him for a 4th round pick in 2025 and a 7th rounder in this year's draft class. So not amazing compensation for DeAndre Swift, but he goes to one of the best rushing attacks in the entire NFL. So where does that leave DeAndre Swift? Now, before I get into that, if you guys can, while you're on YouTube, if you're listening to this on YouTube, I'm going to have some graphics and everything for you guys to look at. If you're not listening on YouTube, if you don't mind going over to the YouTube channel, Dynasty After Dark YouTube channel, and liking, subscribing to the channel. Tell the podcast to one of your friends, just trying to grow the podcast all off season, pumping out a ton of content for you guys all year long here. And if you're looking for just an audio only version of the podcast is available on Spotify, YouTube, Spotify, Google, Apple, anywhere that you can find podcasts, and we're out there as well. So thank you guys for coming in. Now let's jump into DeAndre Swift on the Philadelphia Eagles. So in 2022, last year, math, Miles Sanders was the number 1 runner on this entire team. Now, this was a very, very efficient rushing attack. You know, they had 544 total attempts, and they averaged 4.6 yards per attempt as a team. Now, that is massive. Miles Sanders had 259 attempts for almost 1,300, just under 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, and an average of 4.9. Now, here's the biggest thing that I'm curious to see how it's going to impact someone like a DeAndre Swift. Last year, Miles Sanders had 26 targets and 20 completions. You know, the next running back on the team that was a little bit higher in targets and completions was Kenny Gainwell, who's still on the team, 29 targets, 23 receptions. So DeAndre Swift, throughout his entire career, has been a massive pass-catching weapon. And that's why I'm surprised someone like the Kansas City Chiefs wouldn't pay this price to go and get DeAndre Swift and kind of correct their error of taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire over DeAndre Swift a couple years ago. Now, with DeAndre Swift specifically, he's going to come in and he's going to instantly play in the Miles Sanders role. They did bring in Rashad Penny, but I mean, at this point, we're betting on Rashad Penny to stay healthy more than DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift has a negative impact or a negative perception to his dynasty availability, but last year alone, I mean, he's missed 3 games per season the last 3 years. That's not great, but a lot of the top running backs miss time. The more concerning piece is if you look at last year, once he came back, you know, even to start the season, I don't know if the coaching staff just did not trust DeAndre Swift, but his highest percentage snap in the entire season was in week 1 against Philadelphia, this team. He went off on them, so makes sense why they'd be trying to target him in that game. 15 attempts for 144 yards, 9.6 average with a touchdown, 3 catches, 3 receptions for 31 yards there. Massive, massive game against the Philadelphia Eagles. 67% snap share in that game alone. The rest of the season, 51, 41, 55, 16, 31, 31, 34, 40, 51, 56, 35. Like, they never used him on the field. And maybe it's because they're concerned about his long-term health. That's entirely possible. I'm not going to say that the Lions were not using DeAndre Swift maliciously, right? But it does say that they didn't trust him for health reasons. And DeAndre Swift, what we always say about these players, he's had some freak injuries so far. Last year, it was the the shoulder injury, and it's just not a massive concern long term for his health. And he's injury prone until he's not. And I believe with the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to keep him in a committee. There's going to be a primary committee of Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, and Rashad Penny. I do believe DeAndre Swift is going to be the number one in this entire backfield. But you look at the stats on the seasons, right? So his rookie season, 114 total rushing attempts for 500 yards, averaging 4.6 per carry, 8 touchdowns on only 114 carries. That's crazy. But here's where the real juice was for PPR leagues, right, in fantasy football. 57 targets as a rookie with 46 catches. Sophomore season, he had 151 rushes on the ground, averaging 4.1 yards per carry, 78 targets with 62 catches. Last year, 99 rushing attempts and, averaging 5.5 per carry. Dude is extremely efficient when he does get the ball, but 70 targets, 48 receptions for 400 yards. He is just a massive threat through the air. I don't know if he's going to have that same upside in Philadelphia. So can DeAndre Swift become an RB1 again? My answer is probably. I do believe that he's going to be good enough to jump back into RB1 territory. If you look at the guys that are out there right now at who is in the top 12 of Dynasty rankings, right? I don't have DeAndre Swift up there. Or I do, actually. I have DeAndre Swift up there, but, he's my number 12 guy going into this upcoming season. You have other guys like a Travis Etienne, who just got Tank Bigsby drafted to the team in the 3rd round. Very good landing spot. I have him at 11. It's entirely possible that Tank Bigsby takes a lot of touchdown and goal line work away from Travis Etienne, which means that Travis Etienne is not going to have the same potential as he had previously. I have Nick Chubb up there as well. Guys like Ken Walker, who now has to compete with Zach Charbonnet. So it's entirely possible that DeAndre Swift does enough to solidify himself as a top 12 dynasty running back. Now, he's 24 years old, just turned 24, so he's not old per se. He's a little bit up there, but he's only got 3 years of experience, came into the league pretty young at 21 years old, and with this being his age 24 season, he's going to play all year at the age of 24. He's not even close to the running back cliff. That cliff is kind of malleable now anyway with the way that these players keep better shape of their bodies and things like that. So you're realistically looking at DeAndre Swift falling off the proverbial cliff at around probably 27, 28, especially because he's such a dangerous pass catcher, right? Now, can he stay healthy? That's the biggest question. I don't know. I do believe that he can. I think that in this offense, he's probably going to have about 220 carries, I believe. If he's averaging 4.5, 5 yards per carry, he's going to be breaking 1,000 yards. I do believe they're probably going to try and utilize him in the passing game a little bit more than what they did with Miles Sanders. There's all the reports that they just did not trust Miles Sanders to with his hands, to have the most reliable hands. I mean, he was very efficient, 20 out of 26 last year, but I don't think they put him in those situations, right? And then you got to think about it too. This is going to be a new offensive system because Shane Steichen, who is the Colts' new head coach, right? He was calling the plays for the last year and a half for this team. So it's hard to say what this rushing attack is going to look like, but they have probably, if not the second best offensive line in the entire NFL, with the Lions probably being the number one. So DeAndre Swift is not going to be impacted from an offensive line standpoint. I do believe that he was just in the negative graces of the coaching staff last year. That's why he didn't get on the field as much at the end of last year. And he's going to have a lot of opportunity as long as he can stay healthy. And if he's healthy, he's going to produce for fantasy football. He always does whenever he gets the ball. I mean, you go back to last year, Any of the games where he basically had like 40% snaps, he was always very good for fantasy. Like he did not hurt you. 30% of the snaps, he was kind of 50-50. There's a game where he had 35% snaps and he had 28 fantasy points. So he can do a lot with a little, and I don't think that he's going to have a little with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I like DeAndre Swift as a top 12 guy. I think you can get him on a pretty good value right now. Now, I would probably wait a couple months, right? Maybe a couple weeks before you go and invest in DeAndre Swift. He's got a massive boost in his value right now because of the Philadelphia Eagles trade. But as the offseason goes along, people are going to start talking about Rashad Penny a lot more, especially when Penny gets on the field. And Penny's very, very efficient as well, but he is made of glass. And I don't think that he's going to be able to hold up for more than 2-3 games this entire season. It's just not meant to be for Rashad Penny. What could have been with that guy, I'm not trusting that this is finally the year that he's going to be able to stay healthy and on the field. He's injury prone until, you always say they're injury prone until they're not, right? Well, he's just not. He's not. He's not ever going to be healthy for an entire season. That's just not his MO. So wait until he's on the field and in training camp and, Rashad Penny's looking really, really good, and it's going to depress DeAndre Swift's value again. There are people who are, again, still out on DeAndre Swift and trying to sell now while they still can. If you can, go get him on a discount. I'm telling you, I think that you can get him cheaper than what he's going to finish this year for sure. And then I think that there's potentially still a little bit more that he can go down in value from where he is right now. But, late first round pick, you're talking Kendre Miller or a Tajay Spears or DeAndre Swift. I'd take DeAndre Swift every day of the week. So I do believe that for a late first round pick, now, again, do that before the NFL draft, before your rookie drafts and see if you can get that done. But yeah, DeAndre Swift is criminally underrated right now. And I think that he's going to be a massive steal for 2023. Let me know your guys' thoughts about this over on Twitter, on YouTube. Again, you can find me on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, and I'm excited for all the rest of the content. If there's any conversations that you would like to hear me touch on this entire offseason, let me know, and I'd be happy to create a video for it and give you my thoughts. So thank you guys for joining me, and until next time, have a good night.